Good morning. This is Emily Lindley with TCEQ. I am going to say a few quick words and then we'll dive into the agenda. Thanks for everyone that's tuned in today. I know it's been a couple months since we've had a stakeholder meeting, probably more than a couple months, but we've got some good updates for y'all today. So thanks for engaging with us. Let me just start with a few introductions. Some of these faces are new, some are not new, but they have new titles. So first, let me start with Charles McGuire. He is, I believe, participating today. Can't see him, but I believe he's with us. He's, as you know, the Director of Water for Region 6, also a former TCEQ employee. Charles has been phenomenal, and we're so grateful for how active he's been in this process and his leadership. He's been invaluable. L'Oreal is also on the call today, or the live event. L'Oreal, as you all know, a familiar face. She has a new title though. She is now Deputy Executive Director, L'Oreal Stepney. We also have a new director of our Office of Water, Earl Lott. Might be a familiar face to some of you. He's been at the agency for a number of years. Comes directly from the Office of Waste. He oversaw our Waste Permits Division. He is now, but before that, he did have experience in the Office of Water. So we're glad that he's at the reins for the Office of Water, and he's dove into this issue. He's doing a great job. Today, you will also hear from David Galindo, who is a familiar face. You all know David. And then we'll also hear from Lori Fleet, who is having one or two technical issues, but hopefully she'll pop up here in a little while. And I just want to, I don't even know if she can hear me right now, but I want everyone else to hear me thank her, because Lori has been a rock star. She has kept the train on the tracks. She has helped me tremendously through this whole ordeal. She's carried a lot. And when this is all said and done, and when we have approval, Lori deserves a lot of credit for all the work that's gone into it, because she has been an amazing project manager. So that's kind of who you'll hear from today, as you can see on the agenda. Let me speak to the status of where we are. So as you all know, there's a number of pieces that are required for part of this package when we send it up to EPA. And two of the things that are required are a letter from the Attorney General and a letter from the Governor's Office. Right now, our packet is done. TCEQ has, we believe, put together a complete package. It's at the Office of the Attorney General's office right now, getting one final review, and they are working it quickly, and we are grateful for their involvement along the way. They've been wonderful. And then it will also lastly go to the Governor's Office for him to draft his letter as kind of the cover letter for the package, and then we will submit it to EPA. So we are right here, as I like to say, in the red zone. We are getting ready to cross that field goal line, and so we're very close, and we're very grateful for the review that they're doing, because it's critical, and we should have it packaged up, ready to go to EPA very, very quickly. I had said a couple months ago, maybe some of you heard me say probably September. So here we are in September, and we're very, very close to getting it done. So I think I will stop there. And if anyone needs to or feels like they want to add on to anything I said, they're welcome to. But I will stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emily. So next on the agenda, I'm going to talk about the new general permits that we're working on to replace TXG 26 and TXG 33, which are EPA's current general permits. And so those are the current general permits for the territorial seas and the onshore stripper wells east of the 98th meridian. And so our general permit, we're numbering it TXG 31. Chris Linendahl has been working diligently on this permit, but the plan is that we're going to combine both of these permits, TXG 26 and TXG 33, into one TPDES permit. And that way, the permittees can just apply under one permit number. And being a general permit, you apply through the notice of intent process, which is similar to the existing NPDS general permits that are in place now. So this will cover both federal and state authorizations, and it will replace those individual authorizations that permittees previously had to go through Railroad Commission and also go through EPA. So now it'll just be one permit that covers you both state and federal requirements. So we're developing the general permit specific to the 3 specific categories of the discharge authorized under the offshore stripper wells, coastal facilities, and territorial seas. So the existing requirements under 40 CFR 435 for those discharges, those categorical effluent limitations will be established in our general permit as well. And so the permittee should already be familiar with those requirements. And just a reminder that, under those categories, produced water is authorized under certain categories, but not under all of them, especially for the onshore. If you'll remember, the general permit only authorizes hydrostatic, I believe, in certain, sorry, not hydrostatic, produced water from certain aquifers as spelled out within that general permit. And then, of course, east of the 98th parallel, produced water is not authorized for discharge, and that is a prohibition within the 40 CFR 435 category, unless it is for the beneficial use for wildlife or agriculture. Okay, so we've been working extensively with Railroad Commission and EPA. We've been meeting with them to make sure that we capture everything that they're currently doing in their permitting program and applying it properly into ours, taking into account the differences between EPA and the state currently. So we are moving along with this general permit. The next step would be to, once it's approved internally in TCEQ, it'll then go to EPA for review. EPA will get a 90-day review period. And so we're anticipating to get this hopefully up to EPA by the end of this year. And so that's the goal that we're shooting for. But that's the current status of this general permit. Our next stakeholders meeting is going to be in December. So in December, we will we'll give an update on where we are with that general permit, but it's moving along nicely. Okay, so the next permit is the Outer Continental Shelf permit. And so since this will be, we'll undertake drafting this permit as soon as we send TXG, the previous permit that I just discussed, as soon as we send that TPDES general permit up, TXG 31, we'll begin drafting the state-only general permit for the Outer Continental Shelf. Now, since it's a state-only permit, it doesn't require EPA review. And so, we're hoping that if we get EPA approval in 90 days, within that 90 days, we should be able to have a draft of this permit. And so, in all likelihood, both TXG 31 and the new state-only general permit for the Outer Continental Shelf, we don't have a number for it yet, but they should be publicly noticed about the same time, which may be sometime early next year. And the reason why it's a state-only permit is because we only have authorization under the NPDS program to authorize discharges out 3 miles from the 3 miles from the coast. And so discharges beyond 3 miles and up to 10.2 miles out, or 3 leagues from the shore, is what this outer continental shelf state-only permit will require, will authorize. So discharges in that area. And so the EPA permit for the outer continental shelf is under the number GMG 29. So GMG 29 and 4 zeros is currently in effect. And so since that authorization is available as well, and it will continue to be available through EPA. But this is a case where TCEQ did not have the authority under the NPDES delegation to permit beyond 3 miles, and so there will remain a state and federal requirement for dischargers out in that area. Okay, so the next item we have is the hydrostatic test permit. Lori was having some difficulties, some technical difficulties, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into the discussion on the hydrostatic test permit. And so we've been working on the hydrostatic test. We started on this a little while back. I think we gave you an update at the last meeting, but we initiated an amendment without renewal to our existing hydrostatic test general permit to expand it to include discharges from hydrostatic test water into water in the state from crude oil and natural gas exploration, development, and production operations. And so upon receiving approval from EPA on delegation, we would have this permit already issued in place. And so since it's part of our existing dischargers that don't have oil or that are unrelated to oil and gas, we've set up a system that will it will not allow any discharges from oil and gas hydrostatic testing until we've received approval from EPA. But it is in place, and so that means once we do get approval, hopefully when we get approval, we'll be able to activate that immediately, and permittees will be able to apply for the hydrostatic general permit at that time. And this being a general permit, it's going to be the NOI process, the notice of intent process, which is much more it's a much expedited process, of course, than an individual permit. So public notice of the draft permit, we published it in the Texas Register in July of this year. The comment period ended on August 17th. We received one comment letter. The comments were outside the scope of the amendment that we were working on, so the comment didn't result in any changes to the permit. And the permit is currently scheduled on commission agenda for October 21st of this year. And so, like I said, if approved by the commission, if issued by the commission, it would be in place. However, oil and gas entities would not be able, oil and gas related discharges, hydrostatic discharges related to oil and gas will not be allowed to be applied for until we actually receive delegation from EPA. And so that's the update on the hydrostatic test general permit. I should probably slow down a little bit because we're into the TCEQ individual permit process. And if you remember, last September, we did a full slide presentation with the different pieces of the individual permit process. And so we're going to place that up on our website. And I'm going to talk about the website here in a second. But the website or the presentation include some of the differences or some of the requirements that individual permittees may not be familiar with going through either the EPA or Railroad Commission process, especially the public notice and participation process. TPDS permits require 2 public notices and allow for the opportunities to request public meetings and request a public or a contested case hearing on a permit. And so the universe for individual permits is much smaller than the general permit universe. So it's only going to be a handful of permittees, but we really encourage permittees to contact us, and you can contact me directly. My number is 512-563-3909. And so we can set up a pre-application meeting with you to get you familiar with our process and steer you through the application process and some of the common pitfalls that applicants make. Because the more complete of an application that we receive, the sooner that we can review that and get a draft permit out to public notice. And so we're going to be placing that previous slideshow up on our website, along with some of the additional information that we've been putting together for the stakeholders. Let me see here. I'm having a little bit of an issue, but that's all we had for the individual permit process. I didn't want to go through the whole process again, since it's really just a handful of permittees that maybe have some gas permits, individual gas permits from EPA, or individual permits for produced water discharges west of the 98th for beneficial use. And so I'm already here at the announcements, and then we're going to do a Q&A. But the first thing I want to mention was, so a lot of folks are able to connect to this presentation via the web. And so when you do that, we don't have a record of who attended. And so if you did connect through the web, if you could send us an email to outreach@tceq.texas.gov and just state your name and your affiliation and that you had attended the meeting for House Bill 2771, we will, that would help us greatly keep records of who all attended, and continue to ensure that you receive invites for any future meetings. And so our next meeting is going to be December 10th, 2020 at 1:30. We'll have additional updates on the status of these general permits and the state-only permit. And at that time, really we're working on our implementation process now that we're getting to the end of the process for putting the application for delegation together. Like I said, if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My number again is 512-563-3909. And we are glad to meet with any permittees and do pre-meetings for their applications. So let's see here. The announcements, I'm unable to scroll down here any further on this. Can you move the agenda up a little bit, please, Carissa? Okay, so here's the link to the web page. So that gets you to our permitting web page for wastewater, and then there will be a link to oil and gas permits. And so that's where we'll put the presentation and other information that we've worked on, copy of the draft hydrostatic permit, and then we'll also put the other permits as we get to the draft stages on that. But this is the link to our wastewater permitting page, and it's also got other links to TPDES permits that we issue and unrelated to oil and gas as well, if you're interested in those. And so I guess we can go to questions. I see Lori. Lori, are you on? I guess not. She's not able to communicate to us. I just wanted to see if she had anything additional to add. But
David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I guess y'all can hear me, but you can't see me. Or, you know, it's either one or the other. I apologize, everyone. I did note that I see a comment from Commissioner Lindley that she wanted to make a comment, so I'll pass it to her.
Thanks, Laurie. You you have a lot of good comments, so thanks for letting me cut in line. I wanted to ask Charles if he is able to chat with us through this. I know there's interest out there. People want to know how it works kind of on the EPA side, the process once we submit an application. And I think I know, but I am not the expert, and Charles is our EPA contact. So Charles, if you're on the line and if you're able to speak to the group, will you kind of walk through in general, you know, we submit the package and then what EPA does for their review? Oh, okay. I don't think he can communicate with us all. That's too bad. Like I said, I think I know the process, but I hate to say anything wrong. So what we can do is get that from EPA, and we can always share it with the group as appropriate, you know, through email or whatever's easiest. But you know, my understanding is, just to give you a small taste, is that once EPA deems the package complete, then there is a 90-day clock that starts, and I'll just leave it at that for now. Charles, if that's wrong, you can ping me real quick and we'll correct it before we get off the line. Sorry, Laurie, back to you. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, and I'll just piggyback on that a little bit. The federal regs that are related to EPA's review process, I'll share that with the group. It's 40 Code of Federal Regulations, section 123.61. That's the review and approval process. There's also procedures for revision of a state program in 40 CFR Part 123.62. So 123.61 and 123.62, folks can go read the federal regs there for that process. So with that, I guess we'll start going through the questions and answers. David, did you want to go through those, or you want me to try to tackle these?
Well, I see the first one is from Cyrus. Do you know the answer to this one?
The question is, when would TCEQ packet for delegation authority and governor's office documents be available for public review? Can members of the public see it now? So it's my understanding through EPA's review process that they will be, the application will go through public review and comment once it's submitted to EPA. And again, I don't want to get too involved with EPA's review process, but I believe that there is a public review process after it's submitted to EPA. So I believe at that time is when public would be able to review and comment on it. The next question, asking if the new permit would be numbered TXG 3100040. The answer is yes. So our oil and gas general permit that we are developing to replace EPA's TXG 33 and TXG 26. The number for that we're assigning to that general permit is TXG 310000. And our next question, public comment on that general permit, the TXG 31. When is that going to occur? So our general permit development process, we're going to have to develop the general permit, draft it essentially. And then from there, it would go through an EPA review. And EPA has 90 days to review our draft permit, our draft general permit, and then provide us either a no objection letter or comments. And so we would not go through public notice of that general permit until after we get an EPA approval. So not knowing how much longer it's going to take us to get this draft completed and then going to EPA, there's a 90-day review there. And then depending on if we get EPA approval right off the bat or if we have to resolve comments, it's kind of anyone's guess at this point when we'll be going through public notice on the TXG 31. And so it says, can public comment on the GP? Can the public comment on the general permit, or do we have to wait until after EPA review? Again, it is after EPA review that we'll publish notice of that that general permit. We have another question. When do you anticipate EPA delegation? Again, we're expecting to get the application submitted to EPA rather soon. But then once we get it submitted to EPA, then the EPA review and approval process starts. And again, I don't want to speak incorrectly on their process. So I can't anticipate when we'll get delegation. Like Commissioner Lindley said, they have a 90-day review period. That's about the most I can guesstimate on that. Next question, will existing NPDS permit holders have to reapply for the TCEQ individual permit right away or wait until their NPDS permit expires? So if you have an existing NPDS permit with EPA, the way we are proposing moving forward is that your NPDS permit and your state permit that you have from the Railroad Commission, both of those permits would continue in existence, and you would continue complying with those permits until the first one of them expires. Whenever the first one, so if one has an expiration date 2 years from now and one expires a year from now, we will roll those into a TPDES permit at the earlier of those expiration dates. So the one that's going to expire a year from now, we would end up rolling both permits together and issue you a TPDES permit when that first one expires. So that's our plan. That's the way we have developed our draft memorandum of agreement with EPA on how transfer of jurisdiction will occur. So your NPDS permit will stay in effect until such time that it gets replaced by a TPDES permit that's issued by TCEQ. Next question, what is the date the commission meeting for the hydrostatic test general permit? The hydrostatic test general permit is going to commissioner's agenda on October 21st. Next question, what is the status of EPA delegation request? Again, that we are planning to submit our application for authority later September, early October. We're hoping to get that done rather quickly. That's when we'll be submitting the application to EPA. Next question, is the 2020 MOA with EPA on TPDES on the website the current version that's being submitted to EPA, or is this before the oil and gas discharge requests are added? So the 2020 MOA that's on the website is an update that we did to that MOA. It does not address oil and gas delegation. Oil and gas delegation and the revisions to the MOA related to oil and gas will be addressed in in an additional MOA revision that's included in our oil and gas application that will go to EPA. So what we did with this 2020 MOA that was signed in June is our MOA for our TPDES program. That MOA was developed in 1998, and so as you can imagine, there was a lot of outdated information, like our, even our agency name. And so that 2020 MOA really was just an update to that old document to kind of bring it up to 2020. Our organization, how we are structured, how we review and process permits. So it was really just an update to that 98. The oil and gas changes will be addressed again in our application that we submit to EPA. Moving on. Question, once we get the application, oh, I think this is perhaps this may be EPA. It says it's anonymous. Once we get the application, we will review to see if it is complete. When it is, we will make that declaration, and then we will have 90 days to review and decide. Within that 90 days is a 45-day comment and public notice with a public meeting. Again, I'm reading that it's anonymous, but I'm assuming that is from EPA. Next question, when do you anticipate EPA to delegation for the revised hydrostatic test general permit? I'm a little confused on that question, but EPA already reviewed and approved the hydrostatic test general permit. They approved it before we went out to public notice. So we already have EPA approval on the hydrostatic test general permit. Okay, another one. Okay, this is Charles. This is from Charles McGuire at EPA. Once we get the application, we'll review it for completeness. Once it's declared complete, we will have 90 days to review and decide. During the 90 days, we will have a 45-day Federal Register notice and comment period that will include a public meeting. So thank you, Charles. I appreciate that. Next question, will TCEQ be asking for any budgetary authority for additional staff to run the program beyond that approved by the legislature in 2020/2021 as you develop your legislative appropriation request? When is the TCEQ legislative appropriation request due to the Legislative Budget Board? I'm not aware of any additional staff that we'll be asking for at this time. David, jump in here if you have any information on this.
No, that's correct. We're going to be implementing the program with the existing FTEs that were provided under House Bill 2771. We've already have numerous staff in place to review TPDES permits, and so we'll be using the same staff through that process for water quality assessment purposes. And modeling, discharge routes, that sort of thing. And then the additional staff will be trained specifically for oil and gas permitting and assigning the federal regs that apply to those permits. And so, based on the current number of FTEs that we have, combined with the new FTEs, we should be in a good position to implement these permits. Most of these permits, again, or most of the permittees are going to be, fall under authorizations under general permit. And so that is a notice of intent process. And so it's going to be an automated process to get coverage under that general permit. And so on the enforcement side as well, they had received FTEs. And so we haven't had any discussions at this point, or any initiation of asking for additional FTEs.
Okay. So our next question: what if the application for an individual permit is pending review and approval by EPA? How will it be transferred to TCEQ? So, based on our discussions with EPA, once they delegate the regulatory authority to TCEQ, they cannot issue permits. So if there's a pending application with EPA, you would have to apply for a TIFDES permit from TCEQ. So essentially that individual permit application that's pending with EPA would be withdrawn, and you would apply for a TPDS permit with TCEQ. And with that, I believe that's our last question, unless someone sends any additional ones.
Okay, Lori, let's give them a minute to see if we get any more.
Okay. All right, I'm not seeing any additional questions coming in.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. The next meeting is going to be on December 10th, and we will send out a notification prior to that meeting. So if anyone else has anything else to add, we'll go ahead and end the meeting now. All right, bye everybody.